Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Network Effect. I'm your host, Amy Henderson, VP of Client Relations at Channelnomics. And today we're diving into one of the biggest commercial transformations underway in the Microsoft ecosystem, the shift of enterprise customers toward the cloud solution provider model, or CSP for short. This change is reshaping how organizations purchase and optimize Microsoft investments, and it's creating a massive opening for partners who can guide customers through increasingly complex licensing, commercial, and operational decisions with confidence and accuracy. To help us unpack this, we're bringing in someone who has been at the center of this evolution for more than a decade. In just a moment, we'll be joined by John Dusett, co-founder and board member at Onyx, an AI-powered, expert-backed commercial advisory platform that helps partners scale their Microsoft business with the kind of accuracy, assured licensing, and commercial insights customers desperately need. John has led some of the largest cloud and channel growth motions in the industry, including scaling Microsoft CSP business from roughly 100 million to over 1 billion in just 4 years, and supporting the growth of a U.S. cloud organization to nearly 3 billion ARR. His perspective on how enterprise customers are shifting to CSP, where partners are leaving opportunity on the table, and how AI can transfer the commercial desk is invaluable. Today, we'll explore what's driving this customer transition to CSP, the multi-billion-dollar opportunity partners can tap into, how Onyx's CSP growth engine empowers deeper and more strategic customer engagement, and the practical plays partners can run right now to modernize commercial operations. If you're a Microsoft partner, a commercial leader, or simply trying to navigate the accelerating rhythm of change across the ecosystem, this is an episode you'll want to lean way into. So let's get started. How are you, my friend? Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
I am excellent, Amy. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Another wonderful day in the great state of Utah. Remind me, where are you calling in from?
I'm in Buffalo, New York. I'm in Buffalo, New York. So we're all probably at this point trying to make the most out of the winter that's left and anxious for spring. So it's good. It's good. I saw a stat this morning. So I don't know where someone said we're 17% of the way through the year. Don't hold me to that. But I thought to myself, okay, so that just makes me anxious that we've got to get going with this first quarter.
Exactly. It's always think about this quarter, forget about the next, but then already thinking, or forget about the previous one, but already thinking about the next, right? It's never ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of New York, you just came back from the Microsoft AI tour in New York City, right? You
Yeah.
posted about the Agent Bosses era, like Agent 365, Work IQ, Foundry, how fast the landscape's moving. What stood out most for partners that you saw while there?
Yeah, so I was at the New York City version of Microsoft's AI tour, and the first thing I would say is that's a tour going city to city around the world. I would recommend it to anybody that's in our space, whether you are someone that's working alongside the Microsoft world, even if you're not deep into Microsoft, but certainly for partners. So highly recommend the event. In terms of what I saw that was a takeaway, I said this to people immediately afterwards, which was it's just the progress and the pace of progress that we're seeing in that space in particular. And here's what I meant by that is it was Ignite, where we were all talking about and learning about Agent 365, Foundry, et cetera, et cetera. And here we are just 3 months later, and the capabilities have grown substantially. The use cases are real. We see this as kind of further evidence of the adoption that's happening. And so a lot of these are playing right into our space. Onyx is playing with a lot of those tools. So to me, that was the big takeaway.
Well, speaking of Onyx, you said Onyx is building a deep Microsoft knowledge base with an AI layer for partners. What's the elevator pitch and a sentence or two for our audience on that?
Yeah, thank you. Uh, that thing that we're focused on at Onyx is delivering for partners what we think is a whole new way of driving a Microsoft business. So we focus on all the life cycles, which is we've got capabilities to help partners acquire new end customers. We're helping them totally rethink and transform the idea of a licensing support desk. And we're even changing the way that they optimize sales leads and sales opportunities that come in and matching those to vendor funding. So those are the big outcomes we're driving for partners. And the way that we're doing that is we have built truly the world's first and only deep Microsoft knowledge base, going back decades of all of the information that normally resides only in the heads of those few savants and PhDs that a lot of partners build their business on. We built that knowledge base, put an AI layer over the top of it, and purpose built it for partners to be able to perform assessments that are much deeper, much quicker, many fewer man hours applied to them, rethink the way that they support their customers and internal teams. So this is what we think is going to be the de facto way that partners will run this part of their business over the next couple of years. And it's just how AI is changing the partner's tech stack.
That's so interesting. We're seeing so many shifts right now, and it really brings me back to the main topic that we're talking about right now, which is really the move from enterprise agreements or enterprise customers to
Yep.
CSP, cloud solution providers, the cloud solution provider program, if you will. Again, when you think about how Microsoft's licensing landscape is shifting, with enterprise customers displaced by Microsoft customer agreement for enterprise customers and partners needing to be back in the conversation, what's really changing and why now?
Great setup, great question, because you're right about what's happening in the market. And it's, to me, I think of what you just described, which is this really big shift of Microsoft Enterprise Agreement customers to CSP. I see that as the catalyst to what I spoke about a minute ago. So a minute ago, I'm describing how over the next couple of years, AI is going to transform the way MSPs operate their business. I think that's a technology trend that's happening. What's fantastic is there's a market catalyst that I think is going to play right into the MSP's hands that are adopting technologies like this. And this is what it comes down to, is that the vast majority of mid-market and enterprise end customers will be moving to CSP over the next couple of years. That's because EAs are going away. Many customers don't want to go directly to Microsoft because they want a partner helping them set the strategy for the Microsoft estate, managing that last mile, et cetera. So the partner's role is key. That means thousands of EA customers will move to CSP. So they have a lot of questions. And unlike the past, where they literally only had a handful of EA providers, think LSPs, in the past, these thousands of customers only had a handful of partners that they could go to. Now they have thousands of partners. Every CSP partner out there now could be in that conversation. But to do that, they're going to have to kind of up their game to be able to deliver much more insightful assessments, a higher level of support, et cetera. So I see what you just described a minute ago as the market catalyst. The market catalyst is $25 billion of end customer spend shifting from enterprise agreements to CSP.
So when you think about that 25 billion plus CSP opportunity, this is more about quantifying the prize, so to speak. So how should partners size this for their particular patches?
Yeah. So I size it probably a couple of different ways. One, I think, is just understanding the amount of end customer spend that would be looking to move to a partner-led motion. And so again, for an individual partner, probably one of the most common conversations I have with Onyx partners is they say, I've got X number of total customers in my patch that I sell something to, but only half of them are buying Microsoft from me. The other half are probably on an EA. Well, that in that scenario right there, the Microsoft partner knows they could probably double their Microsoft business by going engaging their other customers. And so I think you size it first by thinking about you could probably double your Microsoft practice by going and engaging customers that are now looking at CSP. But I don't think it stops there, because I think the next thing is that partners are particularly well positioned to talk about all of the tech stack consolidation that can be done around the Microsoft tech stack. That's particularly true with Microsoft, that they've really moved out into security, data management, business process management, AI, obviously. And so the winning partners out there aren't just moving customers from an EA to CSP, but they're actually engaging them about all of that other third party spend and consolidating that on the Microsoft stack. So that's the second thing to size. That's probably another 25%, market opportunity for an MSP. And I haven't even mentioned the services play, because a really well done assessment of one of these environments doesn't just tell the customer about, okay, here's your right sized environment, but it also tells the customer, next quarter we should address the fact that your security score is a little low, so next quarter we're going to spin up a security project. In the quarter after that, I noticed that only 10% of your people are using Copilot, so we're going to do a Copilot adoption after that. So you can see where I'm going, which is to size this opportunity. It's not just doubling the business, it's all the services wrapper that comes around it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's moving more from a, reactive licensing desk type thing to more of a proactive revenue engine, right? So
Yeah.
you notice in the past, a lot of partners, and even now, they often treat licensing as reactive support, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's tickets or trade, or things like that. And I think you touched on it a little bit just now, but maybe if I can double click a little bit on how Onyx turns commercial engagement into, actual pipeline with AI driven expert backed guidance, co-branded customer experiences, accuracy guarantees, things like that.
Yeah. So first of all, you're spot on about the transformation that's happening, and we're absolutely playing right in the middle of all that. But I'm going to give a little context to this because I actually think it's interesting. There's some work that your firm just published in this, which I think is relevant, right? So that has to do with the way how AI is transforming operations for MSPs. So you just published some work that was a recap of the ConnectWise AI Futures Summit in Miami. And if anyone hasn't read it, I recommend it. It's a good recap. In that, one of the things that Larry Walsh said was, it's one of the things he said that resonated with me is that AI isn't a strategy; it's an operational multiplier. I hope I got that phrase correctly. And so, to me, I think of that as that's the way we ought to think about how do you bring tools like this into the MSP's tech stack. So it has its maximum impact on things like defined workflows and areas that you can really change the way you do business, not just abstract innovation, right? So changing the way that questions are triaged that come in from customers, changing the way that assessments of environments are done, changing the way that sales leads are valued. Those are all things that over the next couple of years, AI is going to transform the way we do those types of things, as long as it's built on deep, deep knowledge bases, because you have to be able to give answers that are going to be very deep and specific to whatever the vendor is. And today we're talking about Microsoft. And you have to be able to give highly reliable answers back. So that AI has to be trained to not hallucinate, to be able to tell the user when the answer doesn't exist inside the knowledge base. So that's really what we did. We applied that kind of very deep curated knowledge base approach so that when we're using it to do an assessment, we make a recommendation, it knows all of the rules that you've got to follow. Or when there's a sales lead that comes in, sales leaders in our industry for a long time have seen sales leads that come in that say there's just a buy signal. Well, buy signal's great, but what about matching a buy signal with real data about use or opportunity? And even more importantly, what about matching it to the funding that's available or incentives available, the financial benefit to the partner to go act on it? So I'm unaware of any other platform out there today that's done all of those things, so that AI isn't just kind of an interesting innovation. It's really like multiplying that business outcome you're trying to get to.
Yeah, and I mean, when you talk about multiplying the business outcome and making the most out of that opportunity, one of the things that our listeners would really want to get into is, you know, what what plays the partners can actually run today, right? So you've built a platform with
Yep.
several motions. They're already helping partners win enterprise customers and modernize their licensing decks and their desks. And you've talked a lot about that. Would love to unpack each of them, with you, right? So doubling down on the CSP growth engine, right?
Yep.
This helps win new enterprise customers. You described it as a way for partners to confidently drive enterprise customers to CSP conversions with impartial commercial assessments, so on and so forth. It's also eligible for Microsoft Co-op, which is huge. Can you walk us through how this motion works end to end and how the opportunity identifier translates?
Yeah. And actually, I think you set it up really well because what we've done is built it in a way where we try to put the partner in the center and think about how they run their business. So the first play that I would run, and we're running this with a lot of our partners today, is I would actually take a look at all the end customers that a partner does business with that aren't buying their Microsoft from that partner. And you could approach those partners or those customers today with an assessment that historically would have taken a lot of back and forth with the customer from a lot of different subject matter experts inside the partner's environment and would have taken 40, 80, 100 man hours to be able to complete that work. And now you can really lead with assessments and say, in one conversation and one connection to your data, I can produce for you, multiple scenario based analysis of your current environment, moving to moving the business to the partner. And the partner doesn't even have to fire up a whole brand new, marketing motion to do that. Just go take that play to the customers that you have relationships with, but just aren't buying Microsoft from you today. So to me, that is, a quick and obvious play. The second play, to give you a second one, would actually be in the operations side. And I spoke to a minute ago that let AI be an operations multiplier by taking a look at all of the different activities that come in to the people that handle licensing questions today. Whether that's 2 people or 20 people, the common theme that we hear all the time is that we skill in our industry, we tend to skill to the most demanding, the toughest scenario. So we hire and train to that. And when I ask operations directors, the people that run the business, I say, what percentage of your time are your people actually responding to tickets and inquiries that are like way below their skill level? We always joke it's kind of like PhD level skills answering fifth grade level questions. I don't think I've ever heard an answer less than 50% of their time is spent on fifth grade questions. And so apply AI to rethink that part of your operations, your business process, but do it in a way that's customer friendly. So push out to your customers the way that they can get a lot of answers to their questions without it being something that sits 3 days in an email queue to talk to a PhD. So 2 plays I would run.
Yeah. Yeah, and that that it dovetails well into the next thing that I'm curious about. We talked about the offering playbook as if you will, the Onyx playbook, shifting more into the John's playbook, right? What you've learned from scaling cloud at your past positions like Ingram and
Yep.
beyond. You said complex cloud businesses. You've gone from 1 billion plus CSP in 4 years, nearly 3 billion ARR in the US. What operating cadence and metrics matter when you're turning motions like enterprise customers to CSP into repeatable revenue?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. And this is the book isn't written on this yet because there's still so much transformation that's happening. So and you just cited, like, there's a lot of us who have been able to, build really good sized cloud businesses, managed services businesses. And I still think the book is being written. And maybe that's because I think of what AI is going to do to transform all of it. But fundamentally, I think some of the plays are still very much the same, which is taking an end customer and helping the end customer rethink the way that they bring IT into their business to solve a business problem is something that we're continuing to get better and better and better at. And I actually think the next couple of years, we're really going to make a leap towards you're not even really buying IT anymore. You're buying a business outcome. We say that a lot today, but in the end, there's still a lot of selling of IT. I think we're going to go even further towards really just selling business outcomes. Now, that being said, that model, which will be a kind of a very as a service model, brings in the second big part of playbooks that I've seen to be successful. And that is you have to have a really clear customer acquisition and pursuit model that's different from and just as valuable as your customer success model that you run. And this is a little newer to the channel. And I think there's actually some that are still adopting this model. But in this world where you're selling a business outcome, you don't get to sell it and walk away. You're accountable for making sure that it happens. And to me, generally, that's what I call customer success. So get great at ensuring the solution that's sold actually delivers the value the customer wants. And if you do that, that's how you ultimately kind of optimize your selling efforts and your landing of customers. So to me, that's my playbook. Focus on the business outcomes, have a discrete customer acquisition motion, and have a really thorough customer success motion.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you mentioned having a solid business outcome
Yep.
first before you adopt the technology, right? So it's not about just adopting AI or adopting tech, like we used to, or IT, if you will. You have to have a solid business outcome that ties back into it continuously. Otherwise it fails, and you have to be accountable for it as well, so that's really sound advice.
Buyers are getting
um
savvier too, by the way. Buyers are getting savvier and savvier about this too. So they'll pull us that way if we don't. And so that's why I say let's get ahead of it. They know ultimately they're spending the money to solve a business problem.
Yeah, it's no longer the if we build it, it will come mentality, right? You have to have a plan behind
Yep.
it, and you have to tie it back to an actual outcome, a desired business outcome.
Yep.
So that's exactly right. So, well, let's kind of talk about what I like to refer to as agent bosses, if you will.
Yeah.
You joke that we're all becoming agent bosses, but partners are asking, how do we put agents and co-pilot era innovation to work for commercial moments, right? Whether that's quoting, renewals, terms, and tricky licensing questions without breaking governance or confidence.
Yeah. Well, first, I stole that phrase "agent boss." I'm not even sure who to attribute it to, but I heard it in passing a couple times, and there was something about it, and I think it was the way that a particular speaker said it to me. The way she said it to me, I'm like, oh, it so resonated that today agents are for most of our customers and for most of even us, agents are a bit theoretical. I just really believe in the next couple of years, because they'll be so present in different things that we do, we'll start thinking about the idea that our teams that today are 10 people, 5 years from now, they're going to be 10 people and 10 agents that we have working for us. So I become an agent boss. By the way, at Onyx, this is true because in our business, we're building it kind of on an AI foundation internally as well, so that we're asking ourselves in every business process, how can we deploy agents? But back to your question, what I think this means for partners are at least two things that I see happening. One is partners are going to look at how they can deploy AI, and in particular agentic AI, inside their business processes. Some vendors will bring it as something inside of their product, and others like Onyx will actually bring it as the product. That's like, here's the way you change a business. So workflow. A good friend of mine is actually running a business today, having success, actually selling functional agents to MSPs as well. Built the entire business on that. And it's functional agents so that you have a marketing agent that you manage. You have a customer success agent that you manage. So I think that that's all coming very quickly. And I do think partners, once they've used something like Microsoft Copilot as their easy to access way to talk about AI with a customer. And I know there's a lot of partners that are very advanced, but I'm talking about kind of the masses, that you use Copilot as your way that's very accessible to talk to a customer about the power of AI. I think it's a pretty quick next step to then start saying, why don't I build an agent for you or sell you an off the shelf agent that helps you solve a particular business problem? The reason I like that so much is because you move from concept to reality faster. And I think you avoid that customer kind of eyes glazed over, like you're just trying to sell me AI. No, I'm trying to sell you a business. Like, let's fix your way of processing whatever incoming requests, inside your, whatever it is, doctor's office or something like that. So that's what I think.
Right. Just to make the motion clear, identifiable, and repeatable, right?
Yep.
To save, to free up time to be more productive down the line. I mean, I think that that's what is top of mind for a lot of organizations today is how can we use agents or agent bosses, if you will, to coin your
There
term,
you go.
to make our existing headcount more productive without having to make us get more budget to get more. We don't obviously want to offload our existing headcount, but how can we make them more productive by automating a lot of that day to day? So I love that that perspective.
Yeah, create an environment, I think, create an environment where employees can get comfortable maybe creating an agent for themselves, because that's creative. Now, that's not easy to create that environment because there's a fair amount of research right now that actually says employees are using AI but not telling their bosses about it, which is kind of an interesting state of where we are in adoption. But if you create an environment where people feel really comfortable building and using agents, even if they're off the shelf to get things done, I think that'll be very creative. And then the second is, and again, I'm stealing this from somebody else, they use it every time they go to hire. They ask themselves, should I hire an agent or should I hire a person? And sometimes, maybe the majority of the time, the answer is going to be, I should hire a person. But sometimes the answer is going to be, should actually hire an agent to do this.
Yeah, I mean, when you can do something that has normally taken you, 6 hours as a human, and an agent can do it in seconds, right? And they can do more of it repeatable. I think that that's a play. But when the quality is lacking from it, sometimes you still think that need that human interaction, right? To your earlier point, thinking things like data hallucination and things like that. I think having that human interaction is still vital to manage that. But I think the more advanced AI gets, I think that the more companies are going to have to look at how
Yeah.
they will use humans and the era of agent bosses, if you will. So
It's probably one of the most common piece of advice I give, and I've written about this a couple times in different places, which is I do think human in the loop AI, which is not, I think, understood as well as it should be in our industry, like, but that concept of building it with the idea that as automated and autonomous as it can be, you should design it so that checking in with a human is built into the way it works. I just think that is the way to go right now, not only because you get to actually handle that last X percent, whether it's 1% or 10%, you get to handle that X percent of challenges you run into. But I also think it drives faster adoption when someone knows this has human in the loop behind it. When you tell somebody, I'm going to automate this process, but it's always going to check in with me before it does the last step, the adoption of that process is significantly higher than a process that just does something on their own.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you just want to talk to a
That's
human.
right.
Sometimes you just want to make sure that there's a human behind that, right? Yeah, yeah. That's why whenever, I get on the phone and, I have an automated, robot on that, I'm yelling, agent, not the type of agent that works. I'm talking about a human being. Talk.
That's great. Well, I did try to book my agent to take this call today, but they weren't available. You got the human me. You got the human me.
I love it. Yeah, you don't I didn't include a little
That's
a
your
thing
stuff.
that says prove I'm not a robot before joining, so that's good. So
Yeah.
um
Ethical AI, big believer.
exactly. Well, let's kind of curve the conversation back the ideal customer and partner
Yeah.
profiles that would best fit within the Onyx profile in terms of who would get the most out of
Yeah.
working with Onyx today, and what type of partners from your experience do you see rising to the top?
Yeah. And I'm fortunate that I actually get to leverage work that Channelnomics has already written about. And again, it's that recap of the AI Future Summit, and that is that it talked about things like AI will play a role in identifying inefficiencies that can help drive better margins. I agree with that takeaway. I already mentioned the idea that AI being deployed as an operational multiplier. So when I think about those things and how well they map to what we're doing, it leads pretty quickly to partners that we're working with today that are driving the best results. So there's the two dynamics that we see that very quickly show up about partners that like get it and want to move quickly to using the Onyx platform are if they have a aggressive growth aspiration for their business, the growth from just staying within your own customers is starting to kind of plateau a little bit. There are always opportunities to go deeper with existing customers. Most partners are looking for growth opportunity by acquiring customers. The biggest opportunity right now is the mid-market and low enterprise that are moving from EA to CSP. So partners that tell me they're trying to go from doing one assessment a month to doing five assessment a month, or maybe they're doing 10 and they want to go to 50 because they're engaging customers in those. They look at what we're doing and the light bulb goes on about how they can double their business very quickly. So that's a partner profile that quickly gets the benefit of driving this into their sales workflow. And then the other are partners that have hit a certain scale that they realize that the way they support their customers, in this case, their Microsoft customers, the way they support their Microsoft customers is a function of having really smart PhDs on staff. And you inevitably hit a ceiling where that one person or two people, and I joke, but it's, you know, they work in 60, 70 hours a week and feel like they can never go on vacation because they're the only person that can answer that question about licensing from 12 years ago, etc. Those partners quickly look at this and go, I'll rethink the way I bring that expertise into my business. And that typically will happen at, a certain number of end customers. So once you kind of hit scale, 50 to 100 end customers, you can't do that with one expert anymore. You really have to scale yourself. So to me, those are the types of partners that are finding ways to rethink the way that they run and grow their business.
Well, that is great insight. And it really doves well into my next question because you talked about, existing partners. You talked about, partners that are new, and working with Onyx. So if I'm from a practical perspective, if I'm a newer partner and I wanted Onyx to work immediately for my business, what would be a strong 90-day plan, right? I think you touched on it here in a little bit, but from a pragmatic perspective, what does my first 90 days look like working, with Onyx?
Yeah. So again, the nice thing is that we recognize. I talked about customer success a few minutes ago, so you wouldn't be surprised to hear that I'm building this business. My co-founders and I, we're building this business, taking that same attitude towards the idea that those first 90 days are really about adopting and driving a different business process for the partner. So our first 90 days are typically all about building the sales and customer engagement motion around doing assessments, a deeper, faster pace, et cetera, et cetera. So we actually deploy people into the partner to go help make that happen. And the same thing is true on rethinking and transforming the way you give licensing advice and your support desk. We don't think that that just happens. So we actually work with partners during those first 90 days. Rethink how you tell your customers that you're bringing them a new higher level of support. So you're bringing them, the partner branded licensing advisor capability. So to me, the first 90 days is all about a sprint to get a couple of business processes using the technology so that you can then go drive the business outcomes from it. Again, we sit right inside the MSP's tech stack. And so to them, this is all about turning a return on driving new customer acquisition and, better way of servicing a customer.
Yeah. I mean, great advice and great advice from any partner just looking to have just a plan to start and to look ahead. So I know that we're running up against the time that we have, but one question that I love to ask leaders such as yourself that have been leaders for a long time and that they've had a front row seat to how partner commercial programs succeed or fall flat. When you look across the market, what are the big pitfalls that you see partners running into today that could have a potential to pollute those programs, and what would you advise them?
Yeah, I mean, the first is unfortunately kind of a back to basics comment, which is about partner programs that really align well between partner success and the vendor in that particular case. I mean, that's fundamental. So the biggest challenge is not typically on the partner side; it's on the vendor side, that the vendors have to get themselves into a paradigm of really thinking about the idea that I want to align my success and the partner's success to go get something done. To me, that's probably pretty fundamental. So what does that mean? Well, the shift, probably one of the most interesting shifts that I'm seeing happen, is the rate of technology innovation is speeding up, and that is causing the partner community especially to often be investing ahead of revenue. That's a really tough thing to do. So vendors in their partner programs have to start thinking about how do they lighten the burden of getting a partner to invest ahead of revenue. And then lastly, maybe you go to the other end of the spectrum, partners deliver way more value than customer acquisition. And so the best run partner programs that I see out there today recognize really customer lifetime value and all the things that a partner can do. The only way this all happens, I've learned this from other great leaders that I've had the opportunity to work with and work for. The other thing is that you have to be really clear about what it is that each of the players are going to do. And if you're super clear about those roles, then the value becomes pretty evident. Those situations where everyone's confused about who's doing what, no wonder value isn't clear. But when everyone's really clear on what they're doing, they're like, I totally get it.
Yeah. Well, to end on a positive note, from John Dusett's perspective, if you were to name a major theme in 2026 for partner leaders today, what would that be?
Yeah, great question. And you can tell I didn't prepare a thought around this. So I won't just pick like AI transformation to be self-serving. I think that that's happening. I actually think that the theme that I'm seeing is actually this ability to be agile and resilient is more valuable right now than ever. And I know it has been, but the truth of the matter is that the changes that are coming from different directions require us to be able to quickly determine the right next steps, take those, knowing that if you're winning just a little more than you're losing, that's pretty good. And the times that you don't hit it quite right, you adjust quickly. So I think we're in a period of kind of agility and resilience is the theme. And that's not a negative. That's a positive. Like the more you are, the more you're going to win at that opportunity that's in front of you.
Oh, I love that. Well, John, I know that we're just about out of time. I just want to thank you so much for joining today. I mean, this was an incredibly pragmatic conversation, and thank you for breaking down and giving us a tour of the CSP opportunity with enterprise customers and how AI-powered, expert-backed commercial guidance changes the game for partners and customers. So guys, for links to Onyx, including the CSP growth engine, check out their website. It's getonyx.ai. And for now, we will see you next time on the Network Effect. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, John, again.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate it.